Hello. So I had several people ask me for details about the experience that I had with the psychic medium John Edward at his event last night. So I thought I would just make a video of it. And really quickly, if you haven't been to one of these before, basically the way it worked was it was set in a hotel ballroom. So it wasn't really fancy. It was basically about 300 people sitting in random seats. There were no assigned seats or anything. And John Edwards stood up there with a microphone and just talked for 2 hours. And he went around the room and answered questions, like people's general questions, not specific to their family or their situation or their loved one, but general things about like mediumship or spirituality or what happens when people die, things like that. And then as he was answering people's questions, he would have, the questioner stand up, they would ask their question, and then he would say, okay, I'm getting somebody's coming through for somebody in this area near you, maybe woman in the white sweater. I think this is your dad. He died, he was a firefighter. Maybe he died with a brain injury. So he would start providing information like that, and the person that it pertained to would stand up, and then there would be more of a back and forth exchange. And I would say, it was really surprising. Some of the things that he would say were general, and I'm sure a lot of people, like I remember one time he was like, there was a dog, like did this person get bitten by a dog? Well, I know a lot of people who have been bitten by a dog, who are dead and who are alive, but all in all, I think for everybody that he talked to, he gave enough information. While a lot of it might have been general, when you put it all together, I think it would be hard to just make something up like that. So I did go in with a skeptic's mind, but also trying to be open to the possibilities here. And some of the stuff he said was just amazing. Like so specific, and I don't know how he could have possibly researched things beforehand or just made something up on the spot without there being something more to it. So anyway, toward the end of the event, let's be clear here. There were some things that he said that were completely out of left field that nobody understood. Like one time he asked somebody, what's the connection with Nebraska? I've got this person who's talking about Omaha. What's Nebraska? And the person had no clue. So there's also that. But that was very rare. That wasn't the norm. Most of the time, people totally got what he was saying. So anyway, toward the end of the event, DJ and I are sitting there in the back row, kind of off to the side, and he looks back, and this is like far across the ballroom. He looks back and he points and he goes, in the back row right there, your dad's here. Well, both DJ and my fathers but both of them passed away, so I wasn't really sure which one he was talking to, but he kept pointing. He said, yes, stand up, your father's here. So we both stood up and they brought us microphones, and he said, all right, so what is the significance of the month of September for you? Well, one of my kids was born in September, so I said that, and he said, okay, all right, yeah. And then your dad, he's kind of making a joke about being left-handed, or who's the kid that's also going to be left-handed, like, he's talking about being left-handed. Well, my dad was left-handed. And then he said, and you've got 2 boys, right? And I said, yes, and a daughter. And he said, okay, he said, which of the boys is the one that has the musical connection? He plays multiple instruments. Maybe there's a guitar. Well, my dad played guitar, first of all, and it was super musical. My son, Sam, he also is very musical. He plays multiple instruments. And just that day, I had gone to buy him a guitar, because he's really getting into the guitar here lately. So I said, yes, that's my son who was born in September. He's the one who's very musical. I just bought him a guitar today, actually. And then he was like, yes, I'm getting a name. And I hadn't said the name Sam, but he said, yes, I'm getting a name. It's like Sonny, or it's got an S-A. And I said, well, my dad called him Sammy. He always called him Sammy. Some people do call him Sammy. And I said, yes, that's my son, Sammy. And he said, yeah. And then he kind of drifted. And he also said, your dad is saying that he never really got to meet your kids, or he didn't get to know them very well. He didn't spend a lot of time with them at all, which is very true. My dad probably saw my kids a total of less than 5 times ever. So that was very true. And then he kind of drifted away from the kids a little bit. And then he said, okay, your dad's showing me like a lightning bolt. What's the significance of a lightning bolt? Or somebody had an experience with lightning. Well, my dad got struck by lightning. I've heard that story a few times when he was younger. So I said, yes, there's that. And then he said, okay, your dad also says that you guys have been doing a lot of work on your bathrooms lately, having them redone. Yes, we've had both of our bathrooms remodeled in the past 6 to 9 months. And he said, okay, your dad is really concerned about the fact that they didn't wire some lights correctly, or there like wasn't a dimmer switch put on some of the lighting, which is true. I didn't want to get into all the details about our renovation projects, but like in this room that I'm sitting in, which is new, they were supposed to have wired lights. They didn't do it. I won't get into the details about why. And also our bathroom, if you turn on the lights, it's like an operating room. It's like, boom. I've actually mentioned this in passing to some of my friends, and I guess that's what they're talking about. But anyway, I just kind of laughed and I said, well, yeah, that's true. My dad was also an electrician, so maybe he's like extra interested in the wiring of our lights. I don't know why he would be overly concerned about that, but John, the psychic guy, he kind of laughed. He was like, yep, he's very concerned about it, about the wiring of the lights and the stuff. And then he said, there's a new car. Congratulations on your new car. All right, and this is the time where I'm like, okay, he could say this to anybody. This isn't really specific to me. And I said, well, I don't have a new car. And he said, well, he's indicating there's a new car. Well, my daughter just got her learner's permit a couple weeks ago. So we are moving toward eventually me giving her, she'll be 16 in March, me giving her my car. And at that point I would get a new car. So I said that, and he was like, yep, okay, so you're getting a new car. Congratulations on your new car. And then he was saying something, my dad was saying something like, there's going to be a lot going on regarding real estate with us here soon. I don't know what that means. We're doing a lot of work on our house, but we don't have plans to move or to buy a new house necessarily, even though my husband looks at Redfin like 10 times a day for new houses. But, and then he was saying something about, there is a new business opportunity or somebody going into business for themselves or something like that. And it's not going to happen immediately, but give it like 6 to 18 months and it will be happening in the near future. That I don't know. I mean, I did just redo my resume over winter break because I'm thinking I'm going back to work soon, but I don't know necessarily about starting a new business. So I don't know if that he said that might not be specific to us. It could be somebody really close to us, but new business coming down the pipe. So I don't know. We'll see. Again, that's sort of one of those things that he could say to anybody, right? DJ's grandfather also came through. He asked, who is the man with the military background? Now that could be either either of my grandfathers or DJ's grandfather, but then he went on to say this person, he passed away with military honors, and that would be DJ's grandfather, who was awarded the Purple Heart and Bronze Star and that kind of thing. And he was asking us about a time when DJ was in first grade, if he had done something kind of mischievous having to do with the American flag. His grandfather was mentioning this. DJ had no clue. So that was one that really went over his head and obviously my head. And then he was asking if there is a woman named Marie, and not a dead person, but an alive person, a woman with the name like Marie who had recently had a colonoscopy. Well, DJ's mother's middle name is Marie. So I feel like that's kind of a stretch. I don't know if she's had a colonoscopy lately. DJ does not know. Afterwards, I got to thinking, one of my best friends, Mindy, recently had a colonoscopy. Sorry, Mindy, for outing you. I don't know if they were referring to that. Again, it feels a little bit like a stretch, but that was the only thing I could come up with. And then at the very end of the reading, he said there is a woman, deceased, who was there with the name Mary or Maureen. It was an M.A. name. My brain was so fried by this point, and I was in such a state of like shock that I wasn't really even thinking clearly, but very well could have been my Aunt Margaret. Her name was Mary Margaret, Mary Maureen, Mary Margaret, could have been. And then at the very end, the psychic, looked at me and said, who is the person in your family who passed away from, and then he mentioned a very specific and tragic accident that happened almost 20 years ago to somebody in my family. I won't specify here what it was, but it was very tragic and very unusual. And that was one of my cousins. And he said, and he's here too. So anyway, so that is what went down, and it was really interesting. And I mean, he could only talk to us for like 5 minutes. So, you know, I guess he was trying to get as much as he could out in 5 minutes. I would have loved to have had more time and to ask some questions, like to get more specific, but that's what he said. Bye.